Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi, wa man wala wa ba'd. We continue with our study of Jawami Al-Akhbar, Sheikh Abdul Rahman ibn Nasir al-Sa'di alayhi rahmatullah. And we have reached al-Hadithu al-Thalith wal-Ashrun, or the 23rd Hadith. And it comes عن أبي قتادة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في الهرة. The Messenger of Allah عليه الصلاة said regarding cats, إنها ليست بنجس, they are not najis, they are not najis. إنها من الطوافين عليكم والطوافات, that they are from those domestic type of animals that you have. الطوافين عليكم means that they move around amongst you. They're domestic, basically. They're domesticated animals. So this hadith is reported by Imam Malik and Ahmed and Ahlul Sunan al-Arba. في هذا الحديث محتوى هذا الحديث محتوى على أصلين. So this narration, as Sa'di says, it contains within it two principles, two foundational principles. أحدهما أن مشقة تجلب التيسير. The first principle is that mashaqqa, if something is difficult, then what is brought about by way of that difficulty is a taysir. Allah Ta'ala facilitates things and makes things easy if they are aslan difficult. ذلك أصل كبير من أصول الشريعة. And this is a tremendous principle from the principles of the legislation. He says, من جملتي, so from the general types of examples of this, أن هذه الأشياء التي يشق التحرص منها طاهرة, as those things that it is too difficult to steer clear of, then they are considered to be طاهرة, they are considered to be pure. Something that it was going to require much difficulty. This is why though in the narration of the Messenger of Allah alayhi wherein he was passing by those two graves and he heard the individuals inside of them being punished. Now they are being punished, and he said these people are being punished for something which is not kabir, right? He says bal innaha la kabir, rather it is indeed kabir. So initially he said it's not kabir what they're being punished for, but he followed that up by saying bal innaha la kabir, rather it is indeed kabir, it is indeed big. Sheikh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen, he mentioned concerning this that his first statement that it's not kabir means that it was very easy. It was very easy to protect yourself from this punishment. It was very easy to protect yourself from this punishment. But since you did not protect yourself from it, in spite of the ease of it, you fell into a major sin. You fell into a major sin, right? This is why he said it's not kabir. This said, rather it is indeed kabir. And as for one of them, he did not keep his clothing clean from being soiled with his own urine. And the other, he was a tail carrier, of course. But the shahid from this narration is how, what the Shaykh is mentioning here, that things that are quite difficult to steer clear of, then you find that those affairs are considered to be tahira, they're considered to be pure. Whereas those things that is easy to steer clear of, right, then they are considered to be najis, right? Those things that we're speaking about, things that come into question: is it pure? Is it impure? Is it najis? Is it not? Right? This is the distinguishing line between those types of things. Those things that they come into question as to its purity or the lack thereof. So the asl is, if it is difficult to steer clear of it, then the asl is that's going to be considered pure, right? So that it does not bring difficulty upon the person in the particular affair connected to it. But those things that may come into question as to its purity or not, it's easy to remove yourself from and easy to steer clear of, then the asl is that is going to be considered to be najis. So he's saying that لا يجب غسل ما باشرت بفيها أو بيدها أو رجلها. And so therefore, if we say that it is not najis, this means that it is not obligatory to wash whatever its mouth touches, or whatever its hand touches, or whatever its foot touches. لأنه علل ذلك بقوله, and he justified this ruling by way of his statement, إنها من الطوافين عليكم الطوافات, that they are from those domestic animals that move about amongst you there in your presence every day. And since it's the fact that cats or kittens, and this was a common pet, especially during that time of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam, they were so common to utilize them as pets and so on and so forth, then it would be difficult, right? There's so many of them, it would be difficult to remove yourself and to steer clear of interacting with a cat at some point. Touching the cat touches something that you have to touch and interact with and so on and so forth. It'd be difficult. So therefore, he justified that by saying this is just from amongst your pets and your domesticated animals. كما أباها استجمار في محل الخارج من السبيلين. Now, he goes into mentioning some other affairs connected to purification now. كما أباها الاستجمار في محل الخارج من السبيلين. He similarly allowed the utilization of some stone or whatever stands in its place, meaning istijmar, to purify and to cleanse the exiting point of the two pathways, to cleanse and to purify that. Shaykh comments upon this kalam. He says, يجب إزالة الخارج من السبيلين إما بالماء. So it is obligatory to cleanse and to purify the exiting point of the two passageways, إما بالماء, either you purify that by way of water, and this is called istinja. This is called istinja when you utilize water. إما بالحجارة أو ما يقوم بمقامها, or by way of a stone or whatever stands in its place. This is the kalam that you see from Ahl Ilm when they speak about this issue of istijmar, that you can utilize stones, right? You can utilize stones as was the common practice during the time of the Messenger of Allah alayhi salam, or whatever stands in its place. In these days and times, we don't use stones too much, but we use what? Toilet paper or a rag or what have you in order to cleanse and to purify our private parts or the private parts of our children when we change them and so on and so forth. Whatever stands in its place. So some of the object. هذا يسمى استجمار. So this is what is referred to as istijmar. Istijmar. And it can also be called istinja. والمقصود أن الشارع وسع على خلقي. What is intended here, and the point in Sa'di bringing this speech after the previous speech, speaking about the cats, you see what's the connection? He's just highlighting and showing the fact that Allah, He made the affair broad for us, and how He facilitates and makes things easy for us. Now, he says that, now, فأباها لهم استعمال الجمار في الاستنجاء بدل الماء تخفيفا ورفعا للحرج. So he's clarifying how Allah Ta'ala, He has allowed the use of stones to purify and cleanse one's private parts as opposed to water, takhfifan, in order to make things light upon them, in order to remove difficulty. At any rate, وَمَسْ مَا أَصَابَتْهُ النَّجَاسَةِ مِنَ النَّعْلَيْنِ. Another example, how Allah Ta'ala allow us to simply wipe with that which something of najasa has touched. You can just simply wipe it off, right, from your shoes, your khufs, or what have you, and wiping off the bottom part, or likewise the bottom part of the thawb. وعفى عن يسير طين شوارع النجس, and he likewise pardoned small amounts of soil that may be upon a person's garment for walking throughout the street. If that street has najis on it, if something small, then it's no big deal. Shubayri says, "Al-haqiqa anna dhalika wajib." He says, what is the reality though is that this is wajib. Yani mas an-na'layn, meaning wiping the two shoes, wiping off your shoes. If you see something of filth or impurity or najasa upon your shoes, that you wipe it, that you actually rub until it's gone. Naam, so you can rub it upon the ground. You may be outside and you step in some feces or something like this. You step on some feces, then it's obligatory to remove it from your feet. You must remove that feces from your shoe, right? And so you can do so by rubbing it up on the ground until it's removed, or until it is seemingly removed, and that which is apparent to you. And so you must do this. فالظاهر أن الشارع يريد الإباحة هنا العفو. He says that, so what is clear is that the sharih, the explainer, Sheikh Sa'di, he intends by way of his statement al-ibaha. When he says ibaha here, he's speaking about al-afu, or how Allah Ta'ala pardons us. How Allah Ta'ala pardons us. Yani al-iktifa, meaning that it is sufficient for us to simply wipe, and it is not obligatory to wash in this instance. Again, showing how Allah Ta'ala facilitates and makes things easy upon his servants. So we don't have to technically wash these things. If you find it on your shoe, for example, you find it upon your shoe, you don't have to go and wash the shoes now. You can just wipe it off. You wipe it off, you can rub the shoe up on the ground until you believe that it's gone. Another example of the taysir, and this is how what Sa'di is pointing to here. This also that he spoke about, how that al-mashaqqa tajlub at-taysir. That if something is too difficult, then it brings about a taysir. It brings about Allah Ta'ala facilitating and making the affair easy for us, right? So in this case, it will be some level of difficulty. For example, if you step in something of feces and the likes. Now you're out, you're traveling, your next pair of shoes is all the way in your house, right? And you're out somewhere. Just wipe it off. You don't have to go and now take your shoes off and now wash the shoes and like this. That will contain a level of difficulty. Now, he says, وأبيح الدم الباقي في اللحم والعروق بعد الدم المسفوح. And he has allowed, for example, as well, another example of that. He has allowed الدم الباقي في اللحم. So there's the issue connected to blood, how blood is considered to be najis, right? But the blood that's considered to be najis is الدم المسفوح, the blood of the animal that you slaughter, that blood that comes out when you slaughter. That's the blood that's considered to be najis. Nah? That's considered to be impure. But as for the blood now, there still remains some blood inside the animal. There's still some blood inside of the meat, and so on and so forth, right? So that blood that's inside of the meat is not najis, right? That which is najis is the blood that has been spilled. When you first cut the animal's neck, that blood that comes out there, that's considered to be najis. Nah? There's still blood in the veins, still blood in the meat after the blood that spills upon slaughtering. هذا صحيح فالمحرم هو الدم المسفوح. So Shaykh Ubay says this is correct. What is haram is that dam that is masfuh, that has been spilled, that has been shed. أما ما عداه, as for blood that is other than that. نعم مما يكون في العظام, from the blood which is within the bones or blood within the veins. هذا مباح, this is permissible. This blood is permissible. نعم لأنه لا يمكن أتحرص منه, because it's not possible to avoid it. It's not possible to avoid it. You have to cook the meat, right? And you can't, reasonably extract every single drop of blood from the meat even, and the bones and so on and so forth. So you cook it as it is. You clean it to the best of your ability. You cook it as it is, and that remaining blood is considered to be permissible. Now, مبيح ما أصابه فم الكلب من الصيد. Likewise, he made permissible that which the mouth of the trained dog, the trained hunting dog, that which that dog's mouth touches is permissible for us to eat, right? Unlike the untrained dog. And we spoke about this before, how Ibn Qayyim, he said, from the virtue of ilm, from the virtue of knowledge, is that Allah Ta'ala has allowed us to eat the meat of the hunted game animal by the dog that has knowledge, right? The dog that was trained. You can eat the meat of the animal that it brings back to you, right? Because it was trained for that purpose of hunting. But as for the dumb dog, as for the one who has not been trained, if it goes out randomly and just, happens upon an animal and kills it, then drags it back to you, right? He wasn't trained for that purpose. It was just something that he did off of instinct. Then you cannot eat the animal. You cannot eat the animal, right? Because the saliva of that dog is considered to be najis. The saliva of it is considered to be najis, and the saliva is not all over this animal. Now, so he says, وما أشبه ذلك, whatever resembles this, مما يجمعه علة واحدة, from those things that an illah, one illah brings it together and will make all these things permissible, and that is the mashaqqa, the difficulty in avoiding that thing. Now, he says that the second principle that the narration contains, أن الحر وما دونها في الخلقة كالفأرة ونحوها طاهرة في الحياة لا ينجس ما باشرته من طعام وشراب وثياب وغيرها. The second is that al-hirra, that cats, for example, and whatever smaller than them in creation, such as mice and the likes of that, they are considered to be pure. It's important to notice because sometimes the cat may get into some food of yours, the mouse may get into some food of yours. Yes, it may be disgusting to us and we don't want to mess with it or eat it, but the legislative ruling now, what is the legislative ruling of that food that the mouse got into? The legislative ruling is that it's still considered to be pure. It's still considered to be pure, right? It's, again, it may be disgusting to us and we don't want to touch it, we don't want to mess with it. The mouse got in and ate, some of my crackers or my cookies or whatever, and you may want to toss it. But the legislative ruling in our religion is that it is still considered to be pure. It's still considered pure. Now, he says that, and that which it touches from food and drink, clothing, and the likes are considered pure, or they're not considered to be najis. وَلِذَلِكَ قَالَ أَصْحَابُنَا. As Sa'di says, and due to this, our companions say. When Sa'di says our companions, who's he speaking about? When Sa'di says, Ashabuna yaqulun, our companions say, who's he speaking about? Huh? Who? No. We're speaking about Imam Sa'di alayhi rahmatullah. Right? Whenever he says, Ashabuna yaqulun, or qal Ashabuna, he's speaking about who? Al-Hanabila. The Hanbalis. The Hanbalis. Because Imam Sa'di was Hanbali in fiqh. He was Hanbali in fiqh. Okay? And his book, Manhaj al-Salikin, is a book of Hanbali fiqh. It's a book of Hanbali fiqh. Now, he says, our companions said, Al-Haywanat aqsamun khamsatun min hayth al-tahara wal-najasa. He says that our companions, meaning the Hanbali, say that the animals, al-haywanat, are 5 categories as it relates to their purity or impurity. Now, awaluha, the first category, najasun hayyan wa mayyitan, are those animals that are najis, they are considered vile and impure, whether they are alive or whether they are dead. Right? Alive and dead, it doesn't matter, they're considered to be najis. Now, they are najis fi dhatihi wa ajza'ihi, as it relates to it itself, as well as the various parts of it. Now, he says, وَذَلِكَ كَالْكِلَابِ, like dogs, for example. Like dogs. وَالسِّبَاعِ كُلُّهَا, and all predatory animals. All predatory animals. وَالْخِنْزِيرِ, and pigs, and the likes of this. Right? So these animals are considered to be vile and impure in terms of it in and of itself is a vile and impure animal, and the various parts of it, whether it be its hair, whether it be its saliva, and the likes of that, all of that is considered to be impure. We can make a 10b here, right? If you're taking notes, it's a point of benefit. Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz, he was asked a question about the benefiting from the hide of a pig, right? The hide, the skin of a pig. So it's making leather from it and the likes of this. Sheikh bin Baz, he has a fatwa indicating the permissibility of doing so, because there's a narration that indicates the permissibility of benefiting from it in other than eating it, right? Because what has been prohibited is eating the animal. As for extracting other benefits from it, from its skin and its hair, they have these boar's hair brushes that they sell. People used to use them to get waves back in the day, right? The hair, the bristles is made out of pig hair, right? Out of boar's hair, right? Sheikh bin Baz holds these things to be permissible to utilize it to benefit from in other ways. Sheikh Ubaidi mentions here, Naam, or Afwan, as Sa'di he mentions here, that the pig, the khinzir, is najas hayyan wa mayitan fi dhatihi wa za'ihi wa fadalatihi, such as dogs and siba kullaha, yani predatory animals, and the pig and their likes. He's going to go into some other benefits as well later in the explanation, and how yani certain things are najas but they're not haram, right? And certain things are haram but they're not najas, right? He's going to explain that later. الثاني, the second category of حيوانات ما كان طاهرا في الحياة نجسا بعد الممات. Those things that are considered to be pure while it's alive, but after it dies, it's impure. It's pure while it's alive, but after it dies, it is impure. Like al-hirra, like the cat, and whatever is less than that in khilqa, in terms of its size and so on and so forth. ولا تحله الذكاء ولا غيرها. And these things are not permissible to be slaughtered. You can't slaughter a cat. You can't slaughter a mouse, right? Meaning slaughter it with the intention of eating it. You can't slaughter it with the intention of eating it. The third category, ما كان طاهرا في الحياة وبعد الممات. That which is considered to be pure while it's alive and after it dies. It's pure while it's alive and after it dies. لكن, however, لا يحل أكله, but it's not permissible to eat it. But it's not permissible to eat it. وذلك كالحشرات التي لا دم لها سائل, such as insects that have no flowing blood within them. Bugs or insects that have no flowing blood within them. الرابع ما كان طاهرا في الحياة وبعد الذكاء, that which is considered to be pure while it's alive as well as after it has been slaughtered. It is still considered to be pure. وذلك كالحيوانات المباح أكلها, such as animals that are permissible to be eaten. They are from this category. Any animal that's permissible to be eaten, then it is from this category. And while we're at this point, we can make another tanbih by way of fa'idah, and this is the principle as it relates to the permissibility or impermissibility of certain animals, right, for consumption. Because we find that certain animals we know that we can't eat, certain animals we can't eat. How do we know? The principle is that, in terms of what we cannot eat from animals, is that if we have been commanded to kill it, then you can't eat it. If we've been commanded to kill it, you can't eat it, right? Prophet Muhammad alayhi commanded us to kill what? The lizard. He commanded us to kill the gecko, right? We're commanded to kill the gecko specifically. It's a specific kind of lizard, right? The gecko, the little Geico, 15 minutes to save you, we've been commanded to kill him, right? So we kill him. So we can't eat him, right? Likewise, the black snake, right? We can't eat it. We've been commanded to kill it. So anything we've been commanded to kill, we can't eat. And anything we've been prohibited from killing, then we can't eat, right? Like frogs and other certain animals like this, we've been prohibited from killing them. So therefore we can't eat it. So this is the fourth category, that which is طاهر في الحياة وبعد ذكاء. It is pure in life and after it has been slaughtered, it's still pure. Like حيوانات المباح كلها كبهيمة الأنعام والنحوي, like livestock animals and the likes. الخامس, the fifth category, ما كان طاهرا في الحياة وبعد الممات ذكي أو لم يذكي وهو حلال, ذلك كحيوانات البحر كلها والجراد. That which it is considered to be pure in life and after death, whether it is slaughtered or unslaughtered. And it is halal, it is permissible. For example, anything that comes out of the ocean, whether you kill it yourself or you find it dead. Meaning if it's an oceanic animal, a fish, right? This is why the Prophet, he mentioned alayhi salam, there's this type of meta that is permissible, right? The type of meta, meaning dead animal that you find is permissible, is anything that comes out of the ocean. You find it dead, you find a dead fish, you can eat it, even if you didn't kill it yourself, right? So anything that comes out the water game, and likewise al-jarad, likewise locusts. Locusts, you can eat them, whether you kill them yourself or whether it flies and bumps into you and just happens to die. Because this is how weak the locust actually is. I don't know if the brothers remember a few years back, there was like a swarm of locusts in Mecca, right? And it was a big to do about all these locusts in Mecca. And the kuffar had something to say about it. Their God is displeased with them. He's sending locusts and so on and so forth, right? They don't know that for us, we can eat locusts, all right? We can eat locusts. And the locust, right, this is from those animals like Sheikh Ali will see if he mentioned this, right? There's certain things that Allah Ta'ala has created that are actually very weak in their constitution. They're very weak in their nature, right? A locust is so weak that if it flies and bumps against you, it'll die right there. Just by flying and bumping into you, it'll die right there. That's how weak it is. But when Allah sends that weak animal, Allah sends that weak thing as a punishment, it'll destroy everything in its path. So that weak thing, it becomes strong because Allah sent it, right? So when I was in Mecca around that time, I said, I'm going to try it, right? I'm going to try to eat one of these things. So I picked one up. I got it this close to my mouth, and I just imagined that crunch and that squirt. And I said, nah, I'm cool. Nah, I'm cool. I'm not going to do that one. At any rate, locusts are from this category. It's considered to be pure while it's alive and after it dies, no matter how it dies. Whether it's slaughtered or whether it dies by some other means, it's considered pure and it can be eaten. It's permissible to be eaten. واستدل كثير من أهل العلم بقوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Many of the people of knowledge use the statement of the Prophet عليه الصلاة in which he mentions إنها من الطوافين عليكم والطوافات, that is from those domestic animals that move about amongst you frequently. They use this hadith to also indicate the purity of as-sibyan, of children, the purity of children and the purity of their mouths. If a child was to bite down on something or what have you, like some children like to bite on shirts and clothing and so on and so forth, that their mouth is pure, just as the animals of cats, or the mouths of cats and so on and so forth are pure based on this hadith. They use this hadith also to indicate that anything that rotates amongst you and moves amongst you like this, it is considered to be pure. وَلَوْ بَعْضَ مَا أَصَابَتْهَا النَّجَاسَةِ, even if after some najasa were to touch it. ذَلِكَ كَطَهَارَةِ رِيقَ الْحِمَارِ, such as well, what we extract from this as well is the purity of the saliva of donkeys and mules, and their sweat and their hair. وأين مشقة الحرة من مشقة الحمار والبغل, and the difficulty in the cat is similar to the difficulty, or even less in degree, than the difficulty in donkeys and mules, as the Prophet and his companions used to ride them. They used to ride upon donkeys and mules, so they would come into frequent contact with them. Now, Shu'abaydi says, I say, Huna ara at-tanbih ila amrun ham. I want to draw attention to something important. وَذَلِكُمْ الْأَمْرُ هُوَ الْعِلَّةِ عِلَّةُ الْحُكْمِ. And this is, when we speak about ahkam and legislative rulings, there's what's called illatul hukm, the justification or the reason behind the ruling. The reason behind the ruling. فالمقرر في الأصول أن الحكم يدور مع علته وجودا وعدما. The affirmed principle is that legislative rulings, they revolve around their illat, the reasons for them. Meaning that if the reason for the ruling is there, then the ruling is there. If the reason is not there, the ruling is not there. Right? So the hukm itself that has a illah behind it it's going to rotate and revolve along with that illah, with that reason. If it's there, then we apply the ruling. If it's not there, we can't apply the ruling. وَيَقْصِدُونَ الْحُكْمِ الْمُعَلَّلِ. So what is intended is the ruling that is mu'allal, that has a justification for it. Now, وَهُنَاكَ عِلَّةٌ مَا تَنْفَكُّ كُلْ أَحْكَامٍ تَدُورُ مَعَهَا. So there are certain rulings that it has to have an illah for it in order for us to apply that ruling. It has to have an illah. Now, he says in all ahkam they revolve along with them. وهو التكليف فتكليفه علة لجميع الأحكام أي لوجودها. Such as, for example, taklif, yani a person being of responsible age and of sound mind and so on and so forth. It's called a taklif. And this is an illah for all legislative rulings. And in order for us to apply any ruling, we have to establish this first, a taklif. هذه علة على ضربين. And this illah is of two categories. Firstly, mansus or mujma' alayh. The first is that which has been textually mentioned or that which there is consensus regarding it. And anything that we have a text for indicating that this is an illah for a ruling, right, is a reason for the ruling. If we have a text for it or there's ijma' about it, then this is considered to be a dalil that is qad'i. It is conclusive, a conclusive evidence for that ruling. Now, so the ulama refer to this as qad'i, something being conclusive. It is, it's like a closed case. لِأَنَّ الشَّارِعْ نَصَّ عَلَيْهِ. Why? Because the legislator textually mentioned it. Like the statement of the Prophet ﷺ here regarding the cat. He says, إِنَّهَا لَيْسَ بِنَجَسٍ. So this is the illah. We have a text. All right, this is the illah. It's the reason why we issued a ruling that the cat is not najis. The cat is not najis. Neither its fur, nor its saliva, nor anything from it is not najis, right? Why do we say that? Because of the statement of the Prophet ﷺ. That's the illah for the ruling. That's the justification, the ruling for, the reasoning for the ruling. وذكر العلماء إنها من الطوافين عليكم والطوافات العلة المجمع عليها كالولاية على اليتيم في مهاره. He says, and likewise, the illah that is mujma' alayh, there is ijma' regarding, even though we don't have a text for it, but there's ijma' about it. And in reality, as Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned, anything that there's ijma' about in the religion of Islam, then there is a text to support it, right? Whether we know that text or not. Whether we know that text or not, right? Otherwise, there will not be an ijma' on it, right? We don't make ijma' upon something we just made up. Because there will be somebody to contradict it, right? And so, if there's ijma' about it, Ibn Taymiyyah says, then there's a text to support it, even if that text is unknown or it's not known amongst the people. He says, now, like for example, the wilaya ala yatim fi malihi. Like there is to be guardianship for the orphan as it relates to his wealth. هذه مجمع عليه or عليها. This is something which there's ijma' concerning. ويقاس عليها الولاية عليه في النكاح. And what we extract from that as well is wilaya in the case of marriage. نعم فالنكاح أشد من المال. For marriage is a stronger tie, a stronger contract than that of monetary dealings. Now, فاليتيم يجب أن يقام عليه ولي في نكاحه. And the yatim, therefore, it is a must that there be a guardian overseeing his affairs as it relates to marriage. الثاني, the second type, ما لم ينص الشارع عليه, that which we have no legislative text for. The legislator is not mentioning a text for. لكن استنبطه عالم أو علماء, but the ulama or a scholar has extracted this ruling. Even though there's no text for it, they went in and extracted the ruling from other texts that are around the subject matter. He says, لكن لم يصل إلى رتبة الإجماع, but those scholars who spoke about this issue and extracted the ruling, it has not reached the level of ijma, of consensus. هذا ظني ليس ملزما لأحد. This is considered to be speculative knowledge, and it is not necessary for everyone to act upon it. مثال ذلكم الربويات الست. From the examples of that is the 6 types of riba. فالشارع لم ينص عليه وعلى علتها فيما نعلم. He says, so therefore the legislator has not mentioned a text regarding them as far as we know. Right? This is something which the ulama, they speak about in terms of riba. We know that riba, generally speaking, is haram. Right? But they consider there are 6 specific types of riba, which the scholars have spoken about and extracted from the text. Now, Sheikh Ubaid is saying that we don't know that there's a text that mentions these 6 like this in order. He says, but there's consensus about it. لهذا اختلف أهل. So due to the fact that we don't have a text, the scholars differ about them. فمثلا العلة في البر والشعير والتمر. نعم. Likewise, there is the illah as it relates to wheat and barley and dates. From them are those who say that they are al-qut, they are considered to be staple foods that we eat and benefit from. From them are those who consider to be just general food, not necessarily staples. From them are those who say it is idkhar. These are things that are stored up. When qalat ta'am lahu wajh, and whoever says this, he has a he has a wajh for it, such as the statement of the Prophet alayhi wasallam, al-ta'amu bi-ta'ami mathalan, or mithlan bi-mithl, as it relates to buying and selling in riba, these riba-based rulings and so on and so forth. Hadith is authentic. At any rate, Sa'di says, as for his statement alayhi wasallam fi luhum al-humar yawm Khaybar, and what he said concerning the meat of donkeys on the day of Khaybar, innaha rijzun, that it is rijz, that it is considered to be vile, meaning that the meat of donkeys is considered vile. Najasun haramun aklu, it is najas, it is haram to eat. Amma riqaha, as for its saliva and its sweat and its hair, fulam yanha anhu walam yatawaqqah, then he did not prohibit it, nor did he avoid it. Again, they used to ride this animal. They used to ride upon the animal, and no doubt they would have come into contact with its hair and other parts of its body. Amma al-kilab, as for dogs, فإنه صلى الله عليه وسلم أمر بغسل ما ولغت فيه 7 مرات إحداهن بالتراب. Then the Prophet عليه الصلاة, he commanded to wash whatever its saliva touches 7 times, and making another time be with tarab. Making another time be with tarab, or with dirt. Now, Shaykh Ubaidi says, and this is the end of his commentary, this is a tanbih. Here we have a tanbih. وَهُوَ أَنَّ التَّحْرِيمِ شَيْءٌ وَالنَّجَاسَ شَيْءٌ آخَرٌ. He says in the tanbih is that prohibition is one thing, and najasa is something different. Right? We have to separate these two issues. Not everything that is najas is haram, and vice versa. قَاعِدَةٌ أُخْرَى. He says that another principle is that kullu najasun haram, that everything that is najas is haram, wa laysa kull haram najas, but not every haram is najas. Everything that is najas is haram, but not every haram is najas. Naam, لأن النجاسة لا بد فيها من النص. Because in order to establish something being najasa, we must have a text to support it. We must have a text indicating that this thing is impure or vile. Naam, فَنَحْنُ عِنْدَنَا أَصْلٌ. So we have a principle. And what is the principle? طَهَارَةُ الْأَشْيَاءِ وَإِبَاحَتُهَا. Is that things are considered to be pure. Right? This is the basic foundation, that everything is considered to be pure unless we have a text indicating that it's not. Right? Everything is pure unless we have a text indicating that it's not. فَمَا كَانَ حَرَامًا أَخْرَجْنَاهُ بِمُوجِبْ الدَّلِيلِ. So whatever is haram, then we take it outside of that general ruling by way of a dalil, an evidence. Naam, وَبَقِيَ حُكْمُ الطَّهَارَةِ. So there remains after that the ruling of is it pure or not. فَلَا نَحْكُمْ بِنَجَاسَةٍ مُحَرَّمٍ إِلَّا بِدَلِيلٍ. And we don't rule that something is najasa and naam, or we don't rule that something is haram is najas unless we have an evidence for that. So for example, الدم المسفوح الدليل قائم على قائم نصا وإجماعا على أنه محرم. For example, the blood that is spilled, like we spoke about earlier, when you cut the neck of the animal, that blood that comes out, that blood right there, we have an evidence. We have an evidence indicating that it is haram, as well as we have consensus. لكن النجاسة هذا شيء آخر. But to declare that blood to be najasa is something different. It's something different. He says that وكونه يغسل لأن الأنذار, and as it relates to it having to be washed away, it is because when people see it, they are going to consider it to be something repugnant, that you have blood on you, right? It's considered to be repugnant. والأنفس تعافى, and likewise the souls, when they see it, they are naturally averse to it. هذا ما عندنا فيه نزاع. And so this is that we don't have any niza regarding any difference of opinion or any argument regarding it. لكن لو أن إنسانا ذبح شاة, but if a person were to slaughter a sheep, for example, وصاب ثيابه دم, and some blood from that slaughter were to get up on his clothes, can he get up now and go pray? Can he get up now and go pray with this blood from the slaughtered animal upon his clothing? He says if he were to pray, لا نأمره بإعادة الصلاة, we don't command him to repeat his prayer. We're not going to say he has to repeat his prayer because he has blood on him. Why is that? لأنه تقرر عندنا قطعا التحريم, because we have no doubt that that blood is haram, meaning haram for consumption. That blood is haram for consumption. He says وَلَمْ يتقرر عندنا النجاسة, but we have not established it being najasa. We don't have anything that will indicate that it is najasa. لكن كل نجس haram, but everything that is najasa is haram. Right? So he says, so once it is affirmed that something is najasa, then likewise its hurma or its prohibition will also be affirmed by way of that. Now, and this is why Shaykh Al-Thamini speaks about this issue, right? About the urine of camels. We know that the urine of camels is drunk by many people, and especially amongst the Arabs. But it's so. But Shaykh Al-Thamini, she mentions that this urine is haram due to it being najas. It's only permissible to be drank if it's utilized as a treatment, because it has, medicinal properties in it. So the Prophet ﷺ, he would command certain individuals to drink it, right? Like there was certain people who had come to the Prophet in Medina, and the climate of Medina, they came to him and complained because the climate of Medina, it doesn't agree with us. So we've all gotten sick. We've all gotten sick, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he assigned to them one of his camel herders. He said, follow the camel herder. I'm going to send him out with you, right? And drink from the urine of the camels. And so this is what they did. They drank from the urine of the camels, and then after Allah healed them from their ailment, they got better. They apostated from Islam, and they killed the camel herd of the Prophet ﷺ and drove the camels away. And they mutilated his body. So after this, the Prophet ﷺ, he sent some companions out in pursuit of them, and they caught up with them, and they executed them, and they did to them what they did to the body of the camel herder. At any rate, the benefit that we extract from this is the permissibility if it's being used as a treatment only. If it's not being used as a treatment, don't just drop you some ice cubes in it and take a refreshment from this vile liquid, right? It's not, because it's considered to be najas. It's considered to be haram unless it is used as a treatment. Now, for everything that is najas is haram. He says that, okay, wala aks, and not every haram is najas. وقد ثبتت الحرمة ولا تثبت النجاسة, because perhaps prohibition is established, but we can't establish najasa. حتى الكلب, even as it relates to the dog, for example, الحكم بنجاسته فيه Nadar. As it relates to it being najas, there is nadar. There is we have to look into it. Like in najasa li'abihi. But as it relates to its saliva, we have clear evidence for it. But other parts of the dog, now if the dog was to just come and jump on you, right, put his paws on you, then now do you have to do the same thing that you have to do to something that it licked out of? You have to do the same thing to your clothes, right? Wash them 7 times, making one of them be dust and so on and so forth. Beatty says, fihi another. We have to look at that and examine that. We don't have proof for that necessarily, but we have proof of the saliva. We have proof of the saliva. He says, lu'abuhu qama dalil alayha. As it relates to its saliva, we have evidence to support it being najas. فَلَوْ أَنَّ كَلْبًا وُجِدَ نَائِمًا عَلَى فِرَاشٍ. So if a dog were to be lying upon the carpet, for example, هل نغسل هذا الفراش? Do we have to now wash the carpet? We say لا. Sugar Bay says لا. We don't have to wash it. However, if we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that its saliva were to drop upon it, we know for a fact that the dog's saliva touched that carpet. Then in this case, yes, we would have to wash it 7 times, making one of them to be with dust. Now, this concludes the explanation of the 23rd hadith. Allah Ta'ala knows best. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد.